But before we jump head on into kind of the US India SaaS founders and kind of the challenges they're dealing with, potential pivots, what are you seeing kind of broadly in the AI agent landscape? I mean, as a venture investor, I can tell you that it seems like every startup I'm meeting is an AI agent startup, and people seem to be building things for all sorts of enterprise use cases. How much of it is a mirage? How much of it is true? Are customers really deploying things in prod? Is this all kind of experimentation budgets, right? Like bring us up to speed on the AI agent landscape.
Yeah. So yeah, I think every YC startup is an agent startup right now, and every mom and pop is building an agent startup, which at the end of the day, the target market is also huge. So there are going to be several winners. But yeah, it's like the number of agent startups are, like it's like probably hundreds and hundreds of companies are building the same thing or pivoting, building different for different use cases. I think there's two different use cases in my mind. I mean, if you take a step back, the whole tech stack is being rebuilt, right? The traditional tech stack was like you have like a database, like a MongoDB or SQL, and then you had your Node.js backend, and then you had your React front end, and you had an enterprise SaaS application, and most of the tools for that. And the peak of the 2019, 2018, 2019 was the peak of SaaS hype where you had every company using like until 2020, like 50 to 100 tools. And I felt like there was a peak. And now what's happening is like the entire tech stack is being rebuilt all the way from, if you think about the LLMs are the foundational layer, and then the skyscrapers are going to be built on top of those foundations. So there's huge opportunities. So whether it's like you're building, so we are on the application layer, we're trying to like use those foundational models to actually solve problems and for the enterprises. But every step, whether it's evaluation, fine tuning, training, like every layer in the whole stack has like hundreds of startups building companies, right? So and then what we are seeing is like there's two cases which are really working well. Like one is the vertical use cases, whether it's the AI SDR. I know 11x.ai, they raised like 50 million Series B. And then there's like AI SDR. So that's AI SDR, there's AI recruiter, AI marketer. There's AI for content writing, AI for law firms, AI for financial analysts, AI for accounting. So all the vertical use cases, I think there'll be several winners in the space, which again go to disrupt all the SaaS tools in that space. Like if you think about all the previous SaaS tools, they're actually like kind of replacing, but not just SaaS tools. To some part, to some extent, they're also like augmenting headcount, right? Because almost like instead of hiring a junior analyst or somebody else, you're actually employing agents. So that's the automation piece versus a project management piece here. So those are the ones which are taking off. And then there's a horizontal piece, which platforms like us, like Double.ai, and there's like so many platforms where it's more like providing a no code easy way for building agents for any use case specifically. Not like vertical stuff, but and then for us it's more about automating, like whether it's you doing due diligence, onboarding, like insurance is doing like underwriting, and then it could also be used for marketing and sales use cases. It could be as simple as like, hey, build me an agent where go through all my calendar invites for this week, see who's on the calendar invite, go do a bunch of research on them, and tell me about topics I want to speak to them about, and send me an email before the call. Like generally, you have some sales ops or RevOps person doing this, and now you have an agent doing this. Or obviously writing blogs is the easiest, rather on the marketing side, or coming up with a competitive switch campaign where you go analyze all the competitors and find out what they're bad at and write an email to all their clients pitching your product, right? All of that before maybe a product marketer would do that. Now an AI agent for product marketing is going to do that. So I think there are different use cases here which are taking off. So it's very exciting. It's like very fast, exciting, fascinating, and it reminds me of the time when when iOS became a thing, when Uber, DoorDash, and multi-billion-dollar companies were built on top of mobile. But I think this impact of AI is going to be 10x more than that.
And then in terms of just deployments themselves, like how much of the space right now is experiments, or kind of really hacking around versus really being deployed at scale? Like are you seeing instances where large enterprise customers are putting a stake in the ground and saying that, look, we are going to deploy these agents for very mission critical use cases and do it at scale?
Yeah, I can tell you one thing that a lot of the C-level folks at largest companies, they're not sleeping well because they know that their company is going to be disrupted by an AI startup, which is in kind of a YC batch right now. And they are like, especially the ones in the mid cycle, right? The Series BC companies with like 10 or 20 million in revenue, they are at the highest risk. They don't have enough network effects to defend their business model, and so they don't have a choice. They have to deploy and inject AI to automate further. Otherwise, they are dead. It's almost like it's innovator's dilemma, but compounded by the speed at which they need to get it done by disrupting their existing product. So yeah, I think, but the larger enterprises are a little bit hesitant, not because that they don't realize the value, but they are worried about the data, like the trust and privacy and security and compliance. So there's all other factors which we're still not sure about. They are very concerned that their data is going to be used for training and like all the other concerns. So they are moving at a little bit slower pace than they would like to. But all the mid-stage companies, you adapt fast or you die. You don't have a choice.
And I know, I mean, there's a lot of talk about hallucinations and even just the fact that is the technology ready to really drive these business outcomes at scale. What are you seeing in terms of the tech stacks, especially the foundational LLMs? I mean, both open source as well as the closed ones like OpenAI. Are they how are they kind of improving? How are kind of enterprise customers dealing with the hallucination part of it?
Yeah, so that's a real problem today. In fact, that's why we started building AI, because even though it's so easy to get from zero to demo, right? So it's anybody can get to a zero to demo, but then getting from demo to production is another beast. It's a very different problem. The simplest example is like, let's say I have a workflow where I have like 10 steps. Like step one, I talked about the competitor campaign, where step one, go to a competitor website. Step two, scrape the website. Step three, go to some review site. Step four, scrape the review. Step five, find the strength. Step six, find the weakness. When you try to do this with an agent, it's so easy to do a one-off demo, right? But if you try to do it reliably for hundreds of competitors, it's going to like randomly stop at step four.
Yeah.
Or step seven is going to be researching a completely different competitor. It's
Yeah.
going to come up with strengths of a random company. Like it happens all the time, and then it's not about whether we can solve it. That's the wrong question. It's the inherent nature of the beast. It's a very different way you need to think about LLMs. Traditionally, software developers, they used to, like, if you write a if then else code, you execute it a million times, you are guaranteed to get the same answer. But in LLMs, you're guaranteed to get different answer a lot of the times because that's just the nature of the beast. So the way you actually think about how you make it into a very reliable production level automation systems is like, you need to have like for each step, every model, you need to have like a coordinating agent. You need to have a multiple agents, like coordinating the work, checking the work, supervising the work. So there's different techniques. Obviously, like LMs are good at reasoning. So you need to like use like some kind of a self-reflection. You need to ask LLMs like, hey, are you sure you came up with the right competitor? So you need to use a lot of the different techniques to put together a system which actually works.